Hey guys, how you doing? Good, excellent. So, we're the one you're waiting for, the last one, just because we are the last. So the idea here is that we had a project about OneNote and using a SharePoint for increasing interactivity inside of classes. So the basis of this was, what we wanted to do was to combine some of the materials we've had before and had access to create a better classroom experience for the students. So we're going to use SharePoint technology based off of Office 365 and put OneNote into this mix to allow the students to take better notes for our system. So the idea is that we have this stuff is already available to us. We've already paid for it. It's already here. What we want to do is create a much more interactive environment inside of the classroom for the students to enjoy. So the idea here was, when we talk about real time, is that what the professor's doing and what the students are seeing is going to be the same. So we can actually have students taking notes, professors creating notes, all of this going on at one time. And this allows to a much more collaborative environment and much more interactivity of the students, because students these days need to be entertained a little bit more than they used to, okay? So you got to kind of keep them on their toes. We've got a lot of technologies to do this, and this is just one of the panoply of technologies we want to use. So we implemented this by available technology of Office 365. So what we wanted to do is to integrate Office 365 into the way the students are going to be taught. And the basis of this is OneDrive, SharePoint, and OneNote. I'm going to talk about what these things are real quick here. So OneDrive is essentially a cloud server. So you have it's essentially a disk drive that exists in the cloud. Anything you put onto this disk drive will go anywhere else in the world. So it's like Dropbox or any other technologies like this, and this is what Microsoft uses at the moment. And this is based off of the SharePoint server system. So when the students are using SharePoint, they don't actually see it. It's just the background technology that all their information is being held off of. And this is based off of the Office 365 programming system. And the Office 365 is essentially Office, whatever you want to call it, Office 2016, plus a couple other pieces to it. Everybody in the world uses Microsoft Office. That's what we spend most of our time using, Word or PowerPoint or Access or Excel. So by using these already there, and to leverage the power we have with these, we can give the student a much better experience. And the one better experience we want to show to them was OneNote. And the idea here is that students have a tendency to take notes using PowerPoint, which is stupid. PowerPoint is designed for us to create things for them to see. It is not for them to take notes for what we've given them. That is a called OneNote. So what we wanted to do was to show them how to use all of this stuff together. At the very end, use a learning management system. The one we're using right now is Blackboard, to give a portal for all this technology to make the students use it very easily. So the first goal was to create and implement a centralized shared portal so that students can access this learning material very easily. And then after that was created, to implement and adopt digital note-taking and shared content files, to give the students the ability to actually use these tools to increase their studying capability. And the very end of the project was, once we've introduced this material, we could evaluate the students' response to this and see how they like it, see how they can work with it, and see how we can push this forward into the future. So the first goal was to create and implement a centralized server system or a portal system for the students to get their information from. And the idea here is that you should only go to one place to find all the files you need for a class. You should only have one, so like, where is this located? We hear this all the time. Where is this at? Where is this at? Don't worry about it. It's all right there. To build it into the system. We were previously using Google Drive to hold all the content. For BSF and the courses following it, we are not accessing and utilizing Google Drive to hold content anymore. All it was a big bucket, and pointing students to the files in the bucket was very difficult. Students didn't quite understand where it was located. So instead, we're using Blackboard and SharePoint. Again, SharePoint's just the OneDrive system, to have all the content preloaded. Now, why would we create a centralized portal for this? What's the big benefit for this? The big benefit for this is centralizing everything in one spot. So if a student had class notes for this class, or for that class, for OPP, or for anatomy, or a large group lecture, or a small group lecture, or a professor wanted to put something in that they should read later, or put quizzes, or put any of the tasks in here, it's in one spot. And that one spot is the learning management system. That's how they're used. So we could use Blackboard to contain all this material, and then using the OneNote system and contain cloud drives such as OneDrive and SharePoint to contain the actual files and link them directly to the system. At the very end of the day, we'd like to keep what we call the 3-click rule. You guys have seen this yourself when you're going through Google. When you ever Google something you're looking for, you click on that, you click on the next one, you click on the third one, you will not click on the 4th link. It's a known fact, because it's like a server, and you're going somewhere else, you don't know where it's at. You'll only go about 3 clicks deep. You people have worked on the library, same system in there. In a library, you get about 3 clicks to find a book, you won't go the 4th. So this is what we were looking for this organization, is that when you wanted to find a file, you want to file the notes for the lecture you had yesterday, 3 clicks. You want to file this, you want to find the OPP stuff, you want to find this, 3 clicks. That's the basis of holding everything in a centralized system, is it's not very difficult for the students to find it. And the important part is, if it's difficult to find it, they won't go there. So if it's easy for them to find it, they'll use these things. We have plenty of technology. We have plenty of information. The library is full of a lot of different links to it. The idea is making it so the students can use it. There's more than enough information out there for the students to see. It's getting to it. That's the problem. So the basis of this was pushing a bunch of this stuff on the Microsoft system itself. So for Blackboard, it'll be the portal to access all this material, but the actual class material is going to be held in OneNote. That we're going to publish all the PowerPoints, all the PDFs are going to be held in OneNote. If we need videos, we can push the videos on the Microsoft system too, and put links into Blackboard for that. Therefore, the heavy lifting is done outside of the system. It makes it fast. The students can get to the information quite rapidly, and they can take notes with it. They can interact with this stuff in real time. They can see it as the professors are seeing it. And that is a major advantage to using the system. The second goal is to implement and adopt digital note-taking and shared content files. Now, in the very beginning, BSF required them to use OneNote, and it was painful. We didn't quite have the technology set, and the students didn't like it. Like everything, when you tell a kid, you're going to do this. No, I don't want to do this. You're going to do it anyway because you have to. And that's the one thing with OneNote. People don't like using OneNote the first 2 weeks they use it. The 3rd week, you can't get it out of their hands. They will not go anything else because it is a steep learning curve, but once you use it, it's a beautiful system. So that was one of the major components we had here, is to get everyone registered for Office 365, to get them built into the OneNote system so they can use it, and then show them how to use the cloud drives to store all of the information for all the classes and all the notes they take for the rest of their time at ATSU. So this all centralizes everything they have into one basic component. Now, why use OneNote? There are other systems to do this. The reason we used OneNote is because it has heavy backing from Microsoft. It has the OneDrive system, and it also has a substantial amount of cool technology that is continually evolving. So all class information for BSF, all class supplementary material was posted through OneNote. And you can access this as a student anywhere, anytime, from any platform. From your phone, from your iPad, from your Android device, from your computer. You can add to it from there, you can read it, and you can search it, which is a very important thing. When PowerPoints are published, you can't search a PowerPoint in PowerPoint. So if I want to see in this professor all the use of the word glycolysis, can't search it. If this document is in OneNote, it's easily searchable. So as the classes advance over the years, you're 2 years out, you're studying for Comlex 1, I can study everything, every note I ever took, everything I always have is right there for me to look at. And that's a very important concept and technology to have. So the other major component of this is to create study resources for the students to study from, that they can basically sit through and see this, that students can put their notes in one place. They can do their notes here, they can go home, open up their notes at home, they haven't lost anything. And these notes are searchable. These notes are addable to. And the students can share them with each other. Professors can share, everyone can share through this system, and they can do it in real time. And this is a very efficient method of note-taking. So here's kind of the idea behind it. We publish these pieces as either a PDF or a document into OneNote, and the students can basically take notes on top of it. And the system of taking the notes in the system itself allow the student to add to this. A lot of the computers now have ability to write with your finger on it. They're touch sensitive, and this makes it available. And OneNote, if your writing is better than mine, you actually can search your own writing through the systems too. And it can search all printed text because of optical character recognition built into the system. So at the very end of the day, when we're giving a lecture on something that's highly pictorial, like in anatomy, the students can write this stuff down and take notes on it themselves. We understand that typing material into a computer does not make you learn it as well as writing it, because writing it engages a lot more of the kinesthetic learning systems. So by doing stuff like this, the student can write their own notes, but they're still digital at the end of the day and searchable. So these note systems can get fairly impressive. Here we actually got one from a student, and this is how the student actually used this for a couple of the talks. It's actually one of the talks I gave, to put material in here so they can go back and search through it again and study for the exams. So OneNote linked to SharePoint was a major component. We haven't used this component yet, but this was the reason we started this, is at the very end of the day, this is where we'll end up, is that when a professor is taking notes on the board, or he's giving a lecture and doing the material right there, it's broadcast to all the rest of the students simultaneously. And the students will be receiving the professor's notes in real time. And even better, if a student has a question or circles something, they can send it to the professor, and it's all shown on the board. So everything in the room is hooked up through one central hub. So this is the massive availability for interactivity inside of a classroom. The professor's interactive, the students are interactive, it makes a much better system, and everyone can see what everything's going on. So the third goal we had is to evaluate student responses. I want to hand it over to Dr. Campbell here, because she's the expert on this.
Thank you, Dr. Olson. All right, so at the end of our very first course that we had with our first year students, which was the BSF course, Basic Structural Foundations, which was primarily a lot of anatomy, a couple other things sprinkled in. What we wanted to do is actually get some feedback from our students, because we really had pushed the use of this technology. We had worked through a lot of troubleshooting to get it up and running, and we wanted to see after 3 weeks, how were they using it, and get more information about that. So we designed a survey that had a variety of different type of questions. We had different question categories, and I'm going to walk you through some of the highlights from those, so I'll explain what those are. This was a voluntary survey. We had IRB exemption, and our response rate was 83% of the class, so that was pretty good. So one of the first categories that we asked about was just their general technology in terms of what kind of knowledge and devices they had coming into our school this year. So we asked questions like this one in terms of what sort of operating system are you comfortable with? Again, just to kind of paint that picture of the technology background for our first year class. We asked questions like, did you purchase laptops specifically for SOMA? And the majority responded that yes, they did, almost 70%. We wanted to know if that primary device that they were using is touchscreen capable, since we think that's one of the cool things about OneNote. And we see about 56%, so a little over half, said that their device is. We also asked about prior experience with note-taking software to kind of drill down about that learning curve and see what kind of use they had before they started with us. Turns out only about 30% had previously used note-taking software. We also wanted to collect some information about use of textbook resources, since digital ebooks are widely available, and we were putting some digital resources in our classroom notebook. And so we asked questions like, what percentage of your reading is done using a digital format versus a printed text? And the highest number of responses came in the category of about 90% digital textbooks versus about 10% printed. We had a bunch of open-ended questions, and we're in progress in terms of doing our analysis. When we filter through and categorize and analyze those open-ended responses, we are expecting to learn more about how students actually used OneNote with all the content that we were providing to them. We want to learn more about what features worked best to facilitate learning within our course, and then also learn more about any technology-related issues that may have popped up that weren't otherwise addressed or on our radar during our 3-week course. Of course, at the very end, we wanted to know how they felt about OneNote and if they were planning on continuing using it as they moved forward. One thing we asked is we were wanting to know if they planned to create a digital repository versus a physical library of notes and study materials for use in the upcoming years and for preparing for medical board exams. And so when it came to a physical library, kind of printed notes, 37% said yes, they were planning on doing that. For the digital repository, 97% said they were interested in organizing their materials that way. Will you continue to use OneNote as a note-taking application in SOMA courses? 90% said yes. So even though only maybe about a third of them had previous use with note-taking software, most of them were reporting to us that they plan to continue utilizing OneNote. Now, interestingly, we didn't think we were going to be looking so much at course evaluations. There were no specific questions about OneNote within the course evals, but surprisingly, there was a lot of information coming through those course evals about OneNote. So we wanted to share some of the highlights from that. So we asked, in our course evals, we always ask what parts of the course were most effective in facilitating your learning. And we found that there was 15 comments specifically that mentioned OneNote. And to show you some of those examples, and Dr. Olson had some on previous slides, we saw lots of positive things. I'll read the one at the bottom. I love OneNote. I hope that other professors join the bandwagon and also preload lectures to the OneNote interface. I'm shocked by the level of investment in the BSF professors had in us students and how thoughtful they were in material translation. So there was a lot of positive feedback about the use of OneNote after 3 weeks. We also always ask the question in our evals, what are your suggestions for improving the course? And we did see OneNote pop up a couple times. 9 comments contained that word. And so here's some examples of the areas we can improve. Use OneNote more often and improve the technical support for OneNote. So we did hit a couple bumps in the road with some students in terms of just trying to get this technology working on their devices. And we were doing some troubleshooting, especially within that first week. So have the technical stuff down for Macs and OneNote. The Mac version is just slightly different. And there was a couple bumps in the road, I think, for Mac users. And also have more time in orientation to go through how to use OneNote. It's a cool program, but there is that steep learning curve. So some were suggesting that they might like more time just prior to the class starting just to make sure they know how to use it. Okay, back to Dr. Olson.
So the challenges and changes we made for this is when we first started this, what we want to do is eventually create this environment for interactivity in the small groups and other classrooms. But we didn't quite have the technology in place to do that at this time. So the implementation of Office 365 is not currently supported at ATSU, and the faculty and staff need to be trained on new technological systems. So to introduce this into the small groups, as we wanted to do, will be put off until later because that requires a lot of training for all of the people doing small group talks. And since we weren't quite up to speed on our own use of this, luckily we had complete control of BSF from beginning to end of this so that we could make everything work in BSF. We made all the notes published in OneNote. We used all the material for Blackboard that sets through OneNote. So after this trial run for this 3-week period, we feel much better that we have the possibility of start implementing this as highly interactive systems in other portions of it.
And so even just with kind of the excitement that was generated with what we were doing in that first course, there have been other faculty and course directors who have been interested in implementing having a OneNote classroom notebook to deliver course content. So some of our courses that have followed BSF have adopted use of this. And I can't say enough about our OMS One curriculum coordinator, Charlene Keller, has been key to being a facilitator to help when faculty need to have course materials put into that notebook. She is a key person in terms of being able to do that and take the burden off of a faculty member. She's there to convert all that material and put it in the format that the students would prefer to use, which is getting it through OneNote. So we're very happy that she has been so game to learn from us and figure out how to ease the transition to using it into other SOMA courses. Do we have plans to submit as a poster session or a conference presentation? Yeah, we're looking at possibilities. We think there might be other schools and people in medical education out there that are interested in learning how they could use technology like this to deliver course content. 2 meetings that I've been to, experimental biology and then the AACOM meeting, there's a good community of medical educators that might be interested in what we're doing and learning more about that. And so with that, like to, again, thank Marcia and everyone from Spark Tank and we'd be happy to answer any questions you guys might have.